Hello, this is Jacob Quillen Stewart, and this is my remediation assignment for multimedia production, or as I like to call it, how to build a non-video game course completely around video games. For these assignments, as you've probably noticed, I've focused heavily on video games, design, writing for them, as that's the career I'm planning to go into, and this was the most beneficial route for me to take during this course, which I really appreciate your open-endedness for the course, as it was very easy to get it interested and involved with the projects we were doing. So with that out of the way, the magazine assignment. So with the magazine assignment, I'd never before used InDesign, so it was a completely new software for me to learn. The writing portion of it was super easy. As I'm going into video game writing, I'm used to covering large essays or narrative storytelling. So talking about these video games in a critical way to discuss the art of narrative storytelling was relatively simple for me, and it was really enjoyable to do. But InDesign was a little bit tricky. It's definitely a lot more difficult than Photoshop in my opinion, as I've been using Photoshop for a while. So trying to put these images and get the text wrapped around them was a little more difficult than I'm used to, but it wasn't a big deal. Once I figured it out, it became relatively simple. Now, my experience completing the assignment was relatively enjoyable, aside from all the technical difficulties I might have suffered throughout this project. It turned out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. The only thing that did concern me quite a bit was I did not notice this line in the screen during I don't know how I missed it, but this line during the center of the screen whenever I turned it in for the final assignment. Which you mentioned in my critique, the shadows on the text is a little overwhelming. I feel like that should definitely be cut back more. That's another thing I would have missed. It was really hard to do the citations because of how much room I was left with after I finished the article. I feel like maybe adding an extra page in there could have evened things out a little bit, but I was trying to stick to the requirement. The pictures I feel like I could have done better with. They were kind of hard to find video game pictures that were non-copyrighted, but I think for the assignment I'm pretty happy with it overall. But those are some of the things that I would definitely fix. And the main thing that I tried to do for this assignment, and I've learned it a lot over the course of my design, is the golden spiral, which is actually in the textbook. It's the mathematical construct that has been widely used for centuries determining the proportions of visual space. So basically you just do a spiral onto what you want your audience to focus on. So their gaze starts here at this blue text and it slowly goes around to the center where the controller is. For the podcast assignment, funny enough, I had just done a podcast with some friends of mine the week before this assignment was due. So I actually had a relative understanding of what I was going to do for this assignment, which was just talk about more video game stuff. This one was more focused on the writing aspect of it and how to be a writer within the field. So let me pull that one up. For this assignment, I utilized both the Adobe software as well as Audacity, which is my preferred audio editor of choice, to get everything compiled together, and they basically do the same thing. Audacity is just a little bit more of a simpler layout. But for the most part, I was very happy with this assignment. This is probably the one that was my favorite to do over the semester, as it incorporated writing and speaking instead of any other visual elements, which is what I'm definitely most comfortable doing. So the work on this one was relatively enjoyable as well. It was mostly just me writing another script, and this one turned out to be much longer than the the magazine one, because I had so much to talk about when it comes to the career of this and how to get a job within the industry. I believe my sources for this were really useful, and I've actually gone on to use one of the sources in this in multiple assignments over the semester. In hindsight, the music can be a bit overwhelming at points. The audio quality sounds pretty good. I was pretty happy with how that turned out, but I did realize there was a slight buzzing noise in the background at certain points, and I know what that was, but I didn't know until well after it was turned in how to fix it. But now I do, so that won't happen in any more assignments. Some of the music switches pretty often. I feel like I could have stuck with one or two songs, but I think I had 4 or 5. That's another problem that could be fixed. But for the most part, I don't have a lot of problems with this assignment. I feel like it turned out well, and this was one of my favorites to do throughout the semester. What I'm referencing from the textbook is how I decided which mic I was going to use. I have a total of 3 microphones that could all be used, which is my built-in one for my laptop. I've got a USB external mic, which is what the book recommended. And then I've got a separate clip-on mic, which would not really work for this assignment, but it was something I considered. And the book states that USB mics are relatively one of the better options for certain assignments like this, as it balances the audio a little bit better, and where you can plug it in, it condenses the audio more. My design obviously is very focused on Nier Automata and Silent Hill 2. I would like to point out I completed a Silent Hill 2 hat trick this semester by mentioning it in all 3 assignments, which is my proudest thing to date in this class. Now, the video assignment. The video assignment is another thing that I really enjoyed. I struggled very heavily at the beginning determining what I was going to talk about, because there's not a lot of DIYs that I do other than electronic stuff, and I didn't want to get super confusing for the class. So what I decided to do was just how to hook up retro consoles, where the PS2 is like most likely my favorite console of all time. It goes back and forth between that and the GameCube. I had a fun time just trying to teach everybody how to hook it up. It's relatively simple, but there's a lot of processes you need for hooking it up to like modern monitors and stuff. And yeah, my experience going into this one was pretty easy. My experience going into this one was relatively the same as all the other projects. With Premiere, I had used it several times in the past, but I use other editors more often than I use Premiere, so trying to switch back over to that was a little bit challenging. But once I got the hang of it again, it was pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. Now, I'm overall satisfied with this project, but out of all the projects, I would say that this is the one that I would want to go back and fix the most for. It came down to the wire, as I had a lot of other assignments due that week, so it wasn't the best quality that I would want to do for an assignment like this, but I was relatively satisfied with how it came out. I just wish I could have got my hands on some better equipment, as I'm just filming with my phone. I just didn't have the time to go to the the lab and get other equipment. But yeah, I mean, the camera angles for these kinds of cuts I was very happy with. I thought they were very satisfying to watch and kept the viewer interested. The audio quality is not as great as it could be, but it's not that bad. My mic isn't the best quality, but it definitely holds up. I would definitely try to, with some of these close-up shots, this one especially, where my phone was having a problem focusing. That's a problem that I had throughout the video. Some of these close-up shots were a little difficult to get as I'm reaching under desks to hit power supplies and stuff. But, you know, overall I'm satisfied with it. I wish I could have done more with it, but at the same time I understand my limits, and I think it turned out pretty well. Now, throughout the video, I did try to incorporate stuff from the book. The stuff I incorporated the most was the shot designations, which I had already known about, but it does have a really good page on 421 that goes into detail about how each shot should look. Most of my shots were close-ups and extreme close-ups, but I tried to balance it out with a little bit of medium shots, especially for when I'm trying to talk to the audience or when I'm looking at the audience. But yeah, the designations for the shots were kind of all over the place, which is pretty good for an assignment like this. Now, I just want to thank you for a great semester. It's been really enjoyable having this class. I've really enjoyed the freedom for the assignments and how I can correlate them to my career as opposed to being told what to do. So I just want to thank you again, and yeah.